Ever feel like someone or something has a grip on your soul and you just can't shake it? We're diving into soul ties today.
Soul ties.
I'm kind of excited for this.
Are you?
Well, because I know this is gonna be more
Well,
than
we talk
just
about it a lot.
yeah. Well, this is gonna be more because
Just in our
there's so many things that soul ties are tied to. No, there's a lot of things that go
Yeah.
into this. There's a lot of things. So I'm cool. I'm down. I'm ready to start talking about it because it's gonna go further than just this. But
Yeah, like I said, I think this is going to be a part one.
yeah,
This is going to be more parts of this because it's deep.
It's deep. So let's start from the top. My name is Daniel. This is Dwayne. We grew up in church. Our families are full of pastors, ministers, musicians, and leaders. We've seen the good, the bad, and the downright wild. We're still figuring it out. But one thing we know for sure is we love God and we've got questions. This is the Spiritual Bros podcast, where we keep it real about faith, life, and all the messy stuff in between that, truthfully, we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, man.
As we mentioned, today we're talking about soul ties. Soul ties, soul ties, soul ties. I think a lot of people have different definitions of what soul ties are.
Yeah.
But it's pretty straightforward. What did you find about it?
So, a soul tie is a spiritual link between two people. A spiritual link between two people. It's an intense connection that binds them together physically, mentally, and spiritually. You might think of it as a physical cord tie that connects two people. You may have, you can have more than one soul tie throughout your life.
Yeah.
Soul ties can be one-sided if the person you feel deeply connected to doesn't reciprocate your feelings.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of reiterate what you're saying is soul ties are those connections that link you to people. I truly believe soul ties can link you to locations.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would throw in the caveat like of places too, but yeah.
Yeah, soul ties. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's tied to I guess a location can trip a soul tie, I guess, for the lack of a better term.
Okay.
Because I feel that way like about music and stuff too. Because like whenever you hear a song or smell a smell, I'm like instantly reminded
of a person or something like
a
that.
person or an event or something like that. So it's probably, I think there's something there about that soul tie being to that person. But yeah, man, I mean those deep emotional spiritual connections that could have been built like mentally, physically, they all have definite spiritual connections for sure.
Yeah.
Thing about soul ties is most often whenever I've like 80% of the time I've heard about soul ties, it's always been in the light of them being negative.
True. Just
like, oh, I got these soul ties that always dragging me down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But soul ties, I think it's important to understand that soul ties can be positive or negative.
Yeah.
I want to say a large, depending on how you curate the people in your life, they're not overwhelmingly negative.
Right.
I mean, I understand that they could be because then you feel like, I guess the more soul ties you have, the more different ways you're being pulled because they truly feel like cords.
Yeah.
Like ropes, just tying you and pulling you to a certain direction.
Yeah.
So I think, like for me particularly, I know when I left leadership, I had soul ties to a lot of the people that were serving in my ministry. So I felt kind of torn because I'm like, I know I got to go do this. But then all these people are like, not that they're holding me back. Well, soul ties can't hold you back. I will truly say that. 100% they can. But I think soul ties can also pull you in a different direction. I think ties, depending on what it's tied to, like depending on what your soul's tied to, it could be good or bad.
Right.
Sometimes soul ties hold you down when you're like in the middle of it.
So it's crazy too, because I've heard stories of, and you can say it's a soul tie, but I've heard stories where people will have a bad like soul tie with someone,
Yeah.
and they're trying to not get rid of them, but they're trying to cut it out, you know?
Yeah.
And
Trying to sever the tie.
they might be doing something very positive in their life, and then that person will just like hit them up out of nowhere, and then it'll just kind of drag them right back into it. And it's like, yeah,
I've fully
been there, done that. Yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
remember, I know we had a conversation about here it goes again. It's this girl I was talking to, but there was this you know, when you talk about somebody, you're like, oh, this is the on again, off again, one that got away, kind of could be kind of thing.
Yeah, soul tie.
Yeah, that's a soul tie. That's a soul tie.
Yeah.
That's a soul tie. So there's this particular girl. I truly had a deep soul tie.
No, that's okay. You say you had a deep soul tie. Okay.
Yeah, it was a deep soul tie that I almost considered part of my personality because I figured, that's just the person that was designed for me.
Yeah.
Or that's the person that like, they need a little bit of refinement because I'm a little more advanced or a little ahead or whatever. Excuse I came up with so I could still entertain this. And so because it was the first thing I thought of when you said when that person hits you up and they kind of immediately drag you back to that thing. It was, I misunderstood it as code switching. And it wasn't until I got older and I figured out what I was doing. Because you always have those people that you remember from your past and you're just like, the version that I am around them, that's real me.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I misunderstood the transformative quality of that soul tie because whenever I would talk to her or message her or, see her, I would transform or I'd become the person that I thought she remembered me as. So I'm actually just regressing and doing all the old stuff I used to do. But that soul tie was so strong that...
Because like afterwards you'd be like, why did I do any of that?
Yeah, you're like
that didn't make any sense. I was like, I don't even do that.
Because I was just like, I don't even smoke Newports. Like, I don't even smoke, period. I'm just like, now I'm here with like, or like, for her
sometimes you got to release the stress.
Well, dude, her thing was the Camel Crush. They have like the little menthol ball in it, so you got to crush them and then you smoke them, and then like it just crazy smell. I hated them.
That sounds terrible.
She struggled with smoking, and I realized, damn, every time I hung out with her, either my car would smell lightly like of smoke, or my hands would smell because I had them, or I'd just be like, I would do the whole thing, keep it in the mouth, and like, it tastes so good. I was just like, what am I doing? But that's the thing about soul ties. They can be so deeply seated, and they can be so powerful that they just transform you, dude.
And just transform your personality.
Left unchecked, you can feel wild. And like I personally have had soul ties to lovers, love interests, a lot of homies, a lot of good friends that I thought were supposed to be. And that's the thing, like soul ties are so left unchecked. You can give soul ties to just about anybody.
So what's crazy too? Because I was thinking about this the other day. Is that I was thinking back in the past of like old Wayne, how he used to act, and I started thinking about like, all right, well now I have like some discernment too,
right?
But also like, obviously I pray and
like ask for clarity.
Well, not even that, but I outfit myself with the whole armor, right? Yeah. I didn't do that in the past. Yeah. I was just out here all willy-nilly. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of
chested for the Lord.
Right? And then
no armor.
And I just didn't see a lot of stuff. And so now things are a lot easier to see, but I'm not trying to say it's just because I'm older, but I am, but at the same time, I think things just got swept under the rug.
It's just an experience thing because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, but also things flew under the radar that I just one to be aware of. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But now I can see stuff just like, oh, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's crazy.
I can see that coming from
That's wild. Yeah. That's wild. You are a crazy person. You need to stay over there.
But I mean, a lot of that, it comes from, I mean, just not being prayed up and experienced. Like,
true.
Because God will tell you, like, amen. Not that one.
Yeah.
You know, and it's. I think you just have to have a strong enough relationship with God and be strong enough to where you can be like, oh, I know what they're saying about this person. I know what to entertain, what not to entertain. Or if you don't know, you have to at least know how to, like, if you don't have enough of a relationship with God, how do you know that your prayers are being answered? You know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you... Yeah. And it's just, I guess there's a little built-in side topic in this soul ties thing, because I truly believe soul ties can be a very introspective and investigatory thing.
Yeah.
To where you have to be like, oh, well, you have to, like, take accountability for yourself, but then kind of, like, document and really, really inventory what you have. You're like, what's pulling me in a direction? What do I still feel tied to? Because I know at least before, and I'm still constantly continually doing the work, because I'm like, so what do I feel like is pulling me or pulling on my heart, or what do I feel like is pulling me a certain direction, or what's not necessarily a trigger, but I do think soul ties can trigger things. When I take inventory and take stock of a lot of these different things, I have to figure out, like, hey man, like, what is a soul tie and what isn't a soul tie?
Yeah.
But in that, because there's other things that go into, like, fasting for clarity. There's the things like, when you fast, it's really a purification process in a lot of different ways, and then you figure out what's left. So if you get rid of all the mess and you get rid of, like, the buffer or the stuff in between, then you feel like, okay, what's left? And is this pulling me? If this is left and it's pulling me, then it's obviously a tie. What is that tied to?
Yeah.
But the important thing I want to highlight, and it's kind of like why we're doing these episodes, is you can't necessarily depend on somebody, like, forcing an idea of what it might be on you. You have to investigate yourself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, there's no textbook way of telling you this is what you feel.
Yeah.
I can only give you, like, even in the idea of this podcast, like, we're discussing these things because we're trying to provide context, A, that you're not crazy for feeling the things that you do, and B, that there's a way to figure this stuff out. You know? And the only way you're going to do that is if you separate, like, for example, a church, a book, maybe somebody else isn't going to be able to tell you what the voice of God sounds like to you.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to be able to, it can give suggestions and it can give you, like, reinforcement and points of reference of what you should be looking for. But when you edify yourself and you're, like, reading word and you're trying to figure all this stuff out, and you're, like, in the word, you're studying like you're supposed to, you're taking the notes like you're supposed to, you're praying, how do you know what feedback to take back in?
Right.
Because I know, at least in my experience early on, when I was, like, reading and studying and doing the work, there was always just, like, a myriad of voices in my head. I'm like, which one do I listen to? Like, how do I keep investigating, or how do I filter through the noise?
Yeah.
Because in my head, specifically, I was contending between what my elders and my family said, because they were all pastors and ministers, so they all kind of said a version of things. What did my pastor say? Mm-hmm. Again, the pastors that I've had in my life all kind of say a different version of things, but I'm like, okay, what did my parents say? Like, the parents' voices in my head, and what is God actually saying? So in between all those different voices, are like, what am I saying in my own head of the way I interpret and understand things? And I was just like, how do I filter through all that noise and figure out which one's God? And it's, I don't know of another way to explain it, but it's exposure therapy. Once I kept going and kept going and kept going and kept figuring it out, it started to filter out. I'm like, okay, now I kind of understand how God's voice sounds to me. Yeah. Because I know we talked about it in the past, not everyone interprets the voice of God to everybody is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I know a lot. I know when I was younger, I always thought it was going to be like this James Earl Jones-esque voice, just like cutting through the darkness and telling me, "My son, do the thing." Like, you know, that's what I
That
thought.
sound weird. You sound just like him.
Whatever. I may have said that in my head a couple times.
You got spot on there. It was weird.
But I mean,
He just passed away too, so you can
did
do
he?
probably
R.I.P.
voiceovers for him.
R.I.P. Darth Vader, Darth Mufasa, dog. But that's the thing, like, it's not like that for everybody. And you got to learn how to find that voice and you got to learn how to find that clarity, because things like soul ties are tied into so many different things.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to investigate and you don't know how to find clarity to take them apart, you're just going to be pulled in every direction. Because again, just to kind of reiterate, soul ties are those connections, and they will link you to someone. Because not just specific people. A lot of people think, I myself included, I originally thought that soul ties were just with people that I've slept with.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
Because you can have soul ties that can build you up or hold you back, even after the relationship's long ended, and those lingering things. You can develop soul ties between friends, family, spouse, your exes, and other times, with any of those people. Other times they can either be positive, or other times they can be like they can leave you feeling like you're trapped.
Right.
I don't know why that was so hard to get out. That's so many different things. But
yeah.
there's two sides to soul ties. There's some that can benefit you, and there's some that can really, really, really hold you back.
Yeah. So one of the things too that I've read through a couple books, and it I'm not gonna say it's stated, but it's like, if you were constantly dreaming and having dreams of someone in your past, and it's like an ex or something like that, it's like, why do you constantly keep dreaming about this person?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's a soul tie that you need to break in, or something that you need to either fast and pray on or something like that.
And
but
like get rid of, yeah.
Bro, but yeah, man, one of my exes kept, she was annoying. like in my dreams, she was annoying, and I was like, all right, what is the deal with this?
Yeah.
You know, and I got to pray to God to figure it out.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna go with that, because you just have to pray and figure out.
Not saying she was a bad person, I'm just saying she was just annoying in my dreams.
In your dreams.
Yeah, like why? Like, I don't even think about you.
Yeah, there was a meme that one of my friends sent me. I gotta find it, but excuse me. It's so weird that this meme's coming up, but she sent me this meme and it said, I don't know why people think that you in my dreams is sexual. I had a dream that you turned into a dinosaur and chased me through the mall. Like,
well,
what
that's
are you
demonic.
doing? And it's funny because like it's this whole thing of just like, where I'm drawing the parallel is that a lot of people misunderstand that everything has to be implicitly like sexual in nature.
Yeah.
And you're just nah, man, like there's so much more happening here that you will, like, unless you can look at it clearly, you won't understand.
I wonder who made that post, because that's just no. I'm like, well, they actually going through some stuff, and they're like, yeah. So, I mean, he's like, first of all, you need to pray and fast.
First of all,
whoever you are, meme maker. Yeah.
First of all, you need to seek the Lord, because dinosaurs in the mall is crazy.
Yeah, and chasing you. So anything that's chasing you in your dreams is not a good look, and so you need to pray that stuff.
Yeah,
anyway,
bars.
So,
but no, for real, it's.
I had a Terminator chasing me one time.
Me too. I had the T-1000.
Yeah, me too. And I know, right?
You white man.
And he was in the elevator, and and all I had was a sword, and I was trying to stab him with a sword. But this is literally when I started like rereading the Bible and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, the sword, words.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
I don't know if mine were that. I don't know if mine were that biblical, because I'm like, he was just like.
Mine was.
Like, but it was funny because it was a T-1000, but he was running like Tom Cruise does, You know,
Yeah,
like the
choppy.
weird,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
weird
yeah,
ass, like.
Oh man, we just had the same dream. That's
Bro, I
weird.
was on a. It wasn't an elevator. I was on a skateboard, right?
Okay.
But like the Ninja Turtles, like '90s skateboard. Like
The fat one? Yeah, yeah,
so it was like the
yeah.
fat one. So I was like on a skateboard, and for whatever
It has a
reason,
break at the bottom of it.
yeah,
It was
we had like the
stupid-
big chunk where you like lean up. It's like
Yeah.
So
Classic.
for whatever reason, I had to propel myself by shooting the ground with the shotgun. It didn't make any sense. I don't get it. I was just like, oh yeah, yeah exactly. And it wasn't even like
You weren't even going fast.
no, it wasn't even a pump action shotgun.
Oh, okay.
It was like one of those like lever action ones. So I was like,
Oh wow. Oh, like a repeater.
yeah, dude.
Straight up
It didn't make
repeater.
any sense. And then for whatever reason, he couldn't catch up to me. I guess
He didn't?
No, dude. For whatever
The
reason,
whole time I'd be like, I
was,
can still see you. You're not going anywhere.
I was faster on my shotgun skateboard than the T1000.
Can we put it on a t-shirt?
The T1000.
No, just someone with a shotgun trying to
Shoot the
propel
floor?
themselves on a skateboard.
I don't know if it worked or not. I mean, I got away. I woke up.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that was a biblical dream. It probably wasn't.
Probably not. No.
But I was just like, nah, you can't get me, Terminator. I don't
Man,
think
you
I was-
didn't shoot at him. You shot the
I know, I
ground.
should've
That's
just,
crazy.
Like, I mean, it's just
Anyway, that's wild.
Anyway.
But I mean, Lisa, you had a shotgun. I had a sword.
well,
So
yeah, but you were at least doing damage and defending yourself.
I wasn't doing damage, but I was just stabbing them.
Just like, stab. Did he have any weapons?
No, I didn't have any weapons.
Oh, my T1000 had a
But that's also
crowbar.
weird.
He had a crowbar in one hand.
It's also weird too for like something demonic like that to come in your dreams, thinking that's going to be scary.
So,
like,
yeah.
chasing me enough is annoying, and I'm not scared.
You know what's funny? Weirdly talking about the T1000. So I used to have a Terminator toy, right? And he was like, what is it, 13 inch? Like it was a 13-inch
Oh, like
figurine,
the
right?
G.I. Joe size, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit bigger, but he wasn't a posable figure. It was like a collectible. My grandfather was a huge collector of like memorabilia and stuff, and so he's like, "Oh, you like sci-fi and cool stuff? Here you go." So he gave me a T1000 from I think Judgment Day, because it was the one where like his face is like half blown
Half
off.
gone, yeah.
But this was like I forget the toy. The toy was like in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Or late 90s. But they had electronics in it. So he had buttons on his back. So he was just standing like that in his like action pose, and he had like a gun in his hand. And his action pose was whenever you press any of the things, it would do like the gun noises or the shotgun noises.
Damn, that was 91.
It was like you would press his back and like any of like the machine gun noises. He would just make noises and shoot, and he would say lines from the movie. But his eye would light up.
Oh, yeah.
And then so he was just like,
eye.
and like whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, me being the cool kid that I am, I fell asleep with him in my bed like a teddy bear. And my mom didn't know I fell asleep with him in the teddy bear. And so I like moved around so that she came to check on us. She's going to have to say the story, but she came to check on us. And I pressed the buttons, and she's like, I just heard noises, and there was a red eye in your bed. So I started praying. She's like, I thought it was a demon. And it was the T1000.
That demon over there.
The Terminator. But any whoozle, I got a soul tied to Arnold Schwarzenegger, bro.
Apparently, we both do.
Yeah. Anyway, soul ties can be positive. Truthfully, soul ties. And I'll bring up the soul ties I have with two of my brothers. They're part of the reason. They're one of the bigger reasons of why I moved. They're further along in their career. They're doing huge things. They're doing big things. And they're like, hey, man, we expect more from you, and you're not giving yourself the chance. And they're just like, hey, man, do better. And then because of the ties that I have with them, there's like this inherent unshakable truth that I'm like, cool, if they can make it, I can do it.
Okay.
If they got this going on, they can do it. Like, I got these soul ties with them. It's weird, but it's not necessarily a dragging motion. But if you've ever, I forget what it's referred to, but it's like a team It's like a team. There used to be a drill for football where everyone would wear belts, and you would run as a team. It was a track thing that we did, but like if one of us would lag behind, the whole team would pull everybody up the front.
Okay.
But that's what it felt like. That's what it feels like soul ties wise. Or you had, and it was just like if I'm still running, but then like once I drag behind because everybody's moving in one direction, they just kind of pull you.
Yeah,
like,
okay, pull you forward.
I can keep doing this, but it's also in the same thing of like if I fall behind too much, I'm gonna start dragging them.
Yeah.
So I just got to dig deep and get in it.
Yeah.
And then just keep moving.
And then the opposite works too.
If they stop, then
no, I'm saying the opposite of something that's not good for you. It'd be pulling you back in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the kind of the comparison, because we always want to relate it back to word, is in 1 Samuel 18. It really talks. Well, it shows and it highlights a really positive soul tie. Because you got Jonathan and David. Was it 1 Samuel 18:1 talks about, it just says, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. And that's one of those things of, because I think about a lot of times when I was in leadership, it was cool to watch some of the people that served in my ministry build soul ties with each other.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just one of those things. Like I was like, dang, that's cool. That and like some of the people that I served with in church, how we would build soul ties. Like one of my brothers in Christ, so the day I died, Nico. I remember he was going through some stuff like in his personal relationships and just in life because he's a gigging musician as well as being dedicated. He's one of the few musicians that I know of that he'll do gigs, but he's committed to the church. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'll take outside gigs, but I'll kind of limit them because I still need to be there for rehearsal and I still need to be there for church. Mm-hmm. Very rare in the musician community. And he's one of those guys that I built that soul tie with because he was like, he was always serving in church. I was always serving in church. And he's like, I'm gonna go hard. Let's just go. And so when he was going through some stuff, like he had one of his cars go down. He's like, man, I don't know. He lived like on the other side of town, and he was just like, dang, I don't know how I'm gonna make it. And I was like, don't worry about it. I will drive across town and pick you up, and we'll go to church. Mm-hmm. And it was just like over time, we just built those soul ties, and it eventually propelled us even further because when I started to lag behind because like life wore me out, or when I was just like losing steam in a lot of things, it's like, nah, bro, we got to go. Like, let's go. Because I saw him going hard, that soul tie kind of pulled me up. And then even a couple times he would tell me, he's like, man, whenever I started like lagging, and just the same thing in return, it's like whenever I started kind of like falling off, I saw you going hard and you're like in there getting it done, and you're just like, man, let's go. Like if he can do it, I can do it. We're in there. And it's soul ties can be such a positive thing.
Yeah.
If you curate it as such.
Yeah, well, so like the idea of marriage is technically a soul tie.
Yeah.
And
it's a contractual agreement.
Yeah. And that's supposed to be a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, it can be and it should be. But there's, as long as it's rooted in love and in loyalty and in mutual respect, soul ties are invaluable. Because it's that thing of like...
But I think it also has to be rooted in faith too, because if it's not, it'll just be a nightmare.
No, absolutely.
Hence, that's why you'll have like marriages that are one side it's like Christian, the other side is like, nah.
Yeah.
And then that's just a nightmare. You know what I'm saying? So
and see, like, it's funny because I've seen, it's interesting. I've seen, there's been marriages where like literally just one spouse would come to church and the other one stays at home. But
yeah,
they work.
My family did that.
Right. And some of them I've seen, they will work together.
Yeah.
But then once the obligate has been fulfilled, they're just like, go their separate ways.
Because I mean, not to get off a tangent, but like, so I knew like in my household, my mom was like in her faith. She was deep in her faith. So she's like, we need to go to church.
Right.
Even though my dad was a musician, played in the gospel band, in the gospel group and everything like that, he didn't want to do that in the morning. He didn't want to do that on Sundays. So the leadership already in the house was shifted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that just became it just became a problem.
Its own issue.
Yeah, and then I think that's what the issue is too, when you get to relationships that are like that, because you're like, oh, well, I can see why it would fail, because one, you guys don't have a single goal,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And it's
like like a unified directive.
Yeah. So,
and it's hard because at a certain point when you're, and this kind of is going into the next part I want to talk about is signs of an unhealthy soul tie.
Oh, okay.
You'll know that the soul tie is unhealthy because then you'll start to feel, you'll have like plenty of red flags. You'll feel controlled or emotionally stuck. Which I'm sure at a certain point your parents would have felt, or people that are like on.
Oh, they did. Oh, they definitely did. Yeah.
Like if they're not on the same like page of things, you'll feel emotionally stuck. You'll feel prevented, stunted. Even you'll be kind of feeling a little drugged down a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's. But I mean, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be just a marriage. It can be. Professional soul ties. It could be, church. It could be soul ties with the homies. It could be. It could be with anybody. Like anybody you allow to get close to you and kind of like,
true,
and kind of tie in with you spiritually, can hold you back for real.
Right.
And that's the thing is just like that person. Well, and the thing is too is like it's not just limited to just feeling controlled, because it'll get to a point, I know it did for me, where that person's opinion or their influence will overshadow kind of like what God's saying about my life, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, here's what I mean by that. Like, there was for a certain time, there was a time in my life where I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna carry on the torch that was passed down to me by my father, and that was passed down to him by my grandfather, because my grandfather was a pastor in the church. He was a pastor, became an apostle, and the way it handed down to my dad. Now, the thing is that, I mean, my grandfather was on my mom's side, but he handed it down to my dad because it went through the males in the church. And so for me, it was, for the longest time, it was, oh, you're going to be the kid. You're the golden child. You're the wonder kid. You're going to come up and take your dad's place and continue on and be the next generation, the third generation pastor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But then God was like, I got different things for you. Mm-hmm. I need you to take this different path. And I need you to move forward in a different way, because you're going to have to do different things. While, yes, you will still be doing what I've called you to do, it may not be in that brick and mortar specific aspect like your grandfather did and your father did. Mm-hmm. But the soul ties I had with my dad and my grandfather, and their opinion kind of overshadowed anything that God was going to say. Because I know I didn't figure it out till I was older, that and we've talked about it, prophecies that were like confirmed in me and confirmed for me were just like, hey man, you're going to do this thing. You're going to teach people, you're going to do certain things. You're going to do it a little bit differently than it's been done before, at least generationally in your household. And it's just like, they want me to do this though. It's like, and God's like, yeah, but that's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm not telling you to do exactly that. Do this, but their opinion of what they thought I should do kind of overshadowed what God was saying, even though it's quote unquote in the same direction. Yeah. So it's just like this weird way of just like, it seemed positive because it was like carrying on a legacy, but it's one of those soul ties I didn't understand till I got older, that I was like, man, maybe that particular soul tie wasn't it, and it held me back in a lot of ways, because when I was getting like further into like tech and producing and broadcasting, not necessarily podcasting, but like digital media, I was like, man, how can I get into digital media and still be the brick and mortar pulpit leather shoe wearing pastor that my grandfather and my dad want me to be? Not that wearing leather shoes is bad, but I'm like, that's my definition, like the 3-piece suit with the patent leather shoes, with the worn out Bible on stage, hitting the pulpit and trying to make everybody feel something so we could, continue the thing. Like, that wasn't necessarily, that's what I thought I needed to be, and their expectation and their soul tie with me of that opinion overshadowing what God wanted me to do is held me back in a lot of different ways, because there was decisions and opportunities I didn't take because I was like, well, nah, in the grand scheme of things, every decision I make should lead up to that.
Right.
But I didn't realize until I got older and I really, really, really started to understand God's voice in my life and what it sounded like to me, that God wasn't saying, I want you to do that specifically. It wasn't until I got older when it was just like, oh, okay, so that was just their expectation and their soul tie with me, like, do this, because if you don't do that, you will fail. I'm like, ooh, red flag. But that's something that I didn't kind of take care of, because even because my dad, eventually my parents got divorced and they separated, and my dad kind of moved on with his life, started his next chapter, and then my mom started her next chapter, and we got older and we all kind of did our own things, and just as life does, moves on, I still couldn't move forward in peace because I still felt on some level I needed to do something like that. I couldn't move forward in peace because I was like, dang, guess I'll just fail the family expectation and just do this digital media stuff.
Oh, wow.
I didn't understand until later that was a soul tie that I'd never resolved.
Okay.
And even till now that I'm thinking about it, so when I got fired the first time, so when I was on staff as a media director, right? I did all these things, I did all this stuff, did a bunch of great things in ministry. But when I got let go, the whole thing is that I was doing too much. I was working like 5 different jobs in one position, and being spread out that far thin, I couldn't do it, because where you needed a team of like 5 people, truthfully, it was just me. So I was working full time, and I was still trying to do church after, and I was just getting burnt out, and I was slowly dwindling. My health was declining. It was just this crazy thing. I remember what they told me. They're like, I'm not, because at that point, well, prior to that, my dad was in leadership as well. And what was told to me, they're like, yeah, we're not warring with you. We're warring with your dad. Which basically was like saying, you're failing because you're being just like your dad, right? I didn't understand until later that what it was is there was a lot of things, a lot of behaviors that I was perpetuating because there were still soul ties I didn't take care of. There's a little more that went into that, but there was a little things that I left there's a lot of things that I left unchecked that still felt like I was making a lot of the same mistakes as my father, or perceived to make a lot of the same mistakes as my father, which I learned down the road because that leadership there was weird. There were a lot of the habits and a lot of the good things that I learned from my father, but there was a lot of things that I left unresolved because of those soul ties. Yeah. Not that you should end all soul ties with your dad, but at least check which ones, because a lot of times soul ties are just ideals that gets passed down to you, and you don't understand what the intention of them were. Yeah. What then it becomes like strongholds too. Yeah. And it kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, like for that example of like every time I would see this other girl that I would talk to, I would literally just transformed into that past version of that other person. But that soul tie was connected to an older version of myself and who I thought she was. But it was negative in both aspects, because now I had a different understanding of who she was. So all the growth that she did from that point on negated. All the growth I did from that point on negated. Because then it's weird, because those soul ties kind of go both ways in a sense. Because I would have gone back to that person that I was before. Yeah. But that means for her to enjoy it, she would have to go back to the person she was before. Yeah. So unintentionally, our soul ties dragging us both back that way. Right. Yeah. Crazy.
That's deep.
Deep cut.
That's deep cut.
What'd you think about that? T1000. He didn't say nothing. He's a strong silent type. But no, it's
got the sword.
Got the sword. But truthfully, it's one. Soul ties goes a lot deeper than that, man. Because it's just like we were talking about before we started recording. It kind of ties into a lot of stuff that we don't even know about.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Even with the soul ties, so you're talking about your father, like even so. I know I have weird soul tie with my father, and then when he passed, I got hit with some generational stuff, like right when he passed, and I was like, "What is this?" And it was crazy. So anyway, but that's another story.
And then the soul ties being generational is truthfully a thing.
Yeah, but it was like right after he passed. So like it was during COVID, so I wasn't acting crazy. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't doing anything.
Nobody was doing nothing.
Yeah, no one was doing anything. And when he passed, man, I just started getting all this spiritual warfare stuff out of nowhere. And I'm just like, what is this stuff? And then it took me till a couple of years ago, I would say. So it took me like three years to realize like what was going on. And I was like, oh, okay. So
right. Yeah. True.
And then that's one of the things too, is like you don't talk about. So like we were talking about dreams and getting chased by a T-1000. Like my dad's not going to tell me a dream that he had like that. You know what I'm saying? So like if I'm spiritually, in line, I can see those things now. But if my dad's telling me like this now, I'll be like, oh, whoa, you dealing with what? And then we could fight it. You know what I'm saying? We can go against it. But as a kid, he's not going to tell me like crazy dreams that he's having.
Yeah, like how do you
eating
handle
stuff or making agreements and covenants and stuff like that? Like I don't know, sexual dreams or whatever. I don't know.
Like how do you handle that? Because like. For example,
my mom.
Like, right. So I know my parents did the best that they could. So I'm a millennial. The world was changing around them, and technology was like huge technology was being introduced at that time, and then a lot of things were changing. My dad was born here in the United States. My mom was born in Puerto Rico, which is still part of the United States, but she doesn't know.
Just the way you say it.
What do you want to say, Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico?
You say it like an American.
So, my mom being from Puerto Rico, I rolled my R's extra and I went Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
She had to come to the United States and figure out an entirely different culture.
When I get the board, I'm gonna have the DJ stab just Puerto Rico. What? Anyway, yeah.
Where's it going with that? Oh, so they had to. Dang, you threw me off my whole thing. No, so what it was is there's like things that happened, and there's different soul ties and generational stuff that get passed down. But how do you have that conversation with your kids? Because I know I didn't figure out a lot of stuff till I got older, because my dad was like, hey man, like, could you imagine my dad telling me as like a 9-year-old, hey son, you're gonna deal with inferiority complex. You're just like, what? And it's like, yeah, on top of that, you're gonna deal with colorism. And now your inferiority complex gonna be with your colorism. He's like, not only on your dark, you are Latino. And like that's a lot to unload on a kid. And then like on my mom's side, she'd be like, hey man, you're gonna deal with uneasy struggles and nationalism. Like you're gonna deal with all these uneasy struggles of like struggling how to learn a second language. You're gonna feel stupid, even though you're 100% right. And you're gonna doubt yourself as a communicator for the rest of your life. Good luck, kid. Like there's no way to have those conversations.
And it's crazy too, because there's no way to go to like, hey son, so you're gonna struggle down the line when you get older, because I don't know, people in your past, they sold them souls. They sold the souls and stuff like that, and they signed up with these fraternities and all these other things, and then they was worshiping a bunch of other things they didn't know they were, even though they were still going to church. And you're like, what? You're like, what? And you're like, oh yeah, and like your grandmother and grandfather and all them, they were like Freemasons and stuff like that. So like, it's okay. It's okay.
You're
and
like,
you're like,
it's cool.
Wait,
it's cool.
what?
There might have been witches and warlocks, but it's all good.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
And
then
so how do you
even to take it back even further, when you piggyback like I don't know what tribe I'm technically from
Yeah.
in Africa, and then
Yeah.
whatever witchcraft they were doing over there.
Yeah.
I have zero time for that. But and then you gotta battle that shit.
So the best way, future parents, the best way to get out ahead of this, and the only reason why I figured out a way the only way I trusted myself to start to figure out all this stuff was, even though my parents didn't have those specific conversations with me, because there would have been a numerous amount. They were always like, you need to seek God, but you need to seek God for yourself, and you need to listen to his voice no matter what anybody says.
Right.
You need to talk to God. And my parents were like, I remember my dad used to do this thing, and I think about it often. He was like, hey, son, when you go to pray, there's a secret code word. So when you start talking, it's just you and God. He's like, all you say is in the name of Jesus, and then whatever you say after that is between you and God. That was my dad's way of like when we were kids to
do like a confession kind of thing.
Nah, what he was doing, and I could be wrong. I could just ask him, but what he was doing was he was really teaching us from a very young age of, whenever you need answers, you seek Jesus, you seek God specifically.
Right.
Your answers only come from there. I mean, when I got older, I took it as, your answers are only going to come from one place. You know where to have the conversation. You know who you need to talk to.
So that's awesome, because your father was explaining that stuff. Like,
well, I mean,
but I'm just saying, that's awesome, because that's one of the things where you were talking about teaching is, like, teaching how to pray is a big thing. And
it's a big component.
It's a big component. And like, I didn't learn that from my father. It would have been better to learn it from my father, but I didn't. I kind of learned it from my mom, but then just being in those schools, I kind of learned how to pray in that, because they were Christian and Catholic schools.
Yeah.
So I was able to learn it and kind of adapt it my own way. But that's, bro, like, man, if he just sat down and just like kind of walked me through that, it would have been, I'm not saying a different story. I mean, I still had like a prayer life as a kid. You would still have struggles.
The struggles would just
the struggles would still be there.
Yeah.
But maybe I would have been speaking with God like sooner. You know what I'm saying?
And so it's funny you say that specifically, because again, soul ties to my grandfather, soul ties to different generations that did things differently, caused me not to correctly seek God. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of is religiosity a word? I guess, I don't know if religiosity is a word, but there was a lot of
You just made it up, Brian.
maybe, I don't know, I've heard it somewhere before, but there was a lot of like
making up shit.
Hell yeah. There was a lot of I don't even know how to say it correctly. There was a lot of theater in praying.
Oh yeah.
And
then it's like what to pray for,
Yeah, so
that was another thing.
So
too.
The thing was like, I remember when my grandfather was like, "You need to pray." He would tell me in Spanish, but he's like, "We need to pray." It's kind of like that whole thing when you have people to come up to preach, like at a guest as a church. They say, they always take the pulpit and they say the same thing every time. I would like to thank Jesus Christ, who's the Lord and Savior and the head of my life. I would also like to thank the pastor of this church for him and blah, blah, blah.
And it was all state.
And then it's just like 20 minutes of stuff. And then you have your introduction, and then you actually get to the important stuff.
Yeah.
The soul ties that I had to my grandfather, I was tied to an older form of like, you need to be so theatrical and so extravagant when it's just like, nah, man, just talk to God. You didn't even tell me this whole thing every time you pray. And he's like, by the time you get to what you actually need to, you can't even tell if I'm trying to, like, that's one thing I had to figure out when I got older is like, or when I started praying more and more, God could give you an immediate answer.
Yeah.
Like so for example, it'd be like, God, I come before you in the most humblest of forms, and right now I seek your mighty face. It's like, yeah, you should do it. But in your mighty face, you are all things, and you are the creator of all things, and you have made mountains, and you have made us. Yeah, you should do the thing you're asking me for. You should do that. Yeah, but you have every cattle on every hill, and you own all the things. It's like, okay, well, you should do it. You were about to ask me for this, but no, wait. You are the God. Is like, okay, well, you should do it.
Yeah.
Lord, what is your answer?
Yeah. Yeah.
You should do it. But God, you know what I mean? Like, it was all that theatrics and stuff. So I didn't realize that later down the line. It was really my dad that kind of helped me, but it was really, really praying by, like, on seeking God. It was just like, dude, you can just talk to God. Like, it doesn't have to be that serious.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things too that I learned that was wild, because you hear some people that have a good prayer life, and it's like, man, he's like, man, I talk to God like he's one of the homies. I was like, wait, what?
I can talk to God like one of the homies.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like I thought
I have to like comport myself, because then I would be calling people like a whole bunch of stuff. I'd be cussing fools out, bro.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it's like growing up the way I did.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it was frowned upon, but it's like no one talked about it.
Yeah.
No one talked about their prayer life, anything like that. Yeah. So you didn't know.
It was like
how people prayed
for some reason.
It was very secret. And then the only time it wasn't secret was when the pastor was doing it, but the pastor was praying for everyone. Yeah. So it wasn't just himself. It wasn't
specific.
Yeah.
My I will say, my parents were really good about praying in the house. When we were at home. My mom was always very open about worship too, praise and worship in the house, because we used to have a upright piano in the house.
Oh, okay.
And then every once in a while, because my mom knows how to play piano, and then she would just be like, we'd be cleaning in the house.
Your boy can play a little bit.
And then so dude, you'd think I spent
tickle the ivories.
You would think that growing up in a house where we had an upright piano readily available, I would learn piano. I would know piano.
Yeah.
No, I don't know piano at all.
Yeah, I know.
I'd be like, I can't even play chopsticks, bro. Don't say so as a matter of factly.
Just
you haven't seen me play the keys.
Just saying.
But the whole thing is like they made that readily available, and like they normalized it. And so there was no like preconceived notion that I couldn't do that.
Right.
And a lot of those things truthfully helped me understand that I could search for truth, because if you're conditioned to be in a place where like I can find this information whenever I want,
right?
I can figure out what the truth sounds like, and I can figure out what doesn't sound right. It's like understanding that you got Google in your pocket and you could just look stuff up.
Yeah, you
could just look stuff up, but then when you get all these search results, sifting through them, figuring out what correct information is and what it isn't.
Right.
And it's cool because once you start to understand that you can find this information, you can figure out ways to like get around these soul ties. You can figure out ways to break free from them.
Well, you can, but there's an issue with that is because soul ties is spiritual. So there's not a map of the spiritual world kind of like that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I was saying that like you can talk to God about it.
Yeah, you talk to God about it.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can just jump into like undemocratizing, opening up the pathway to get to God is such a free exchange of information, exchange of strategies that if you're allowing soul ties to pull you back into an older form of getting information, once you open that up, you can find whatever you want.
So the fact that you just said that reminds me of I forget the name of the stupid little dude that's in the other guy in Total Recall. He's like, open your mind. Open your mind. Yeah, you're like, what?
My God,
get that little baby out of here, man. That's crazy.
The
Total Recall is so good.
Or the little alien in Men in Black, where he's like, and he's like telling them to find the cat because the cat's got the Secret Studio universe. That's what we're saying, dog. That's what we're saying, fool. We're the little
Quado. Quado is his name. They did a whole episode of Quado on Rick and Morty, and it was just hilarious.
Rick and Morty. We're talking about soul ties, cut.
Yeah, but
We're gonna watch this video right quick.
No, I mean, not really. At first, you just need to, This movie's so good.
Movie is good.
What do you want, Mr. Quay? Same as you, to remember.
Right?
To remember.
To be myself again. You are what you do.
Soul ties.
Soul ties.
A man is defined by his action,
Yo,
not his memory.
bars.
Let's go.
Bars.
Please, take my hand.
Bars. God.
Quato's spitting some truth.
Now, open your mind to me. Please,
That's weird. I don't like that. Open your mind to me. Weird.
open your mind.
All right. Yeah. Let me pause it. Yeah.
No, I'm cool with it.
It gets creepy. So good though.
Not to segue back into more important things, but breaking free from soul ties is an invaluable skill. I truly believe it's a skill because now you can, once you further understand you yourself as a person and you understand your prayer life and you understand like where you stand with God and what God really wants for your life and you get answers to these questions, it becomes easier to be like, discernment
becomes easier. Yeah.
Discernment. Thank you, sir. That's the word. You said it like 3 times tonight, and I should just like pay attention to that.
My bad, bro.
But soul ties, breaking free from soul ties, it's pretty simple. In my experience, what's worked for me is to get very honest about them. I bring it to God where I can identify a soul tie, something that's holding me back, an individual that's holding me back, a relationship that's like stuck, where I'm just like, I can't shake this person, I can't do it. Like truthfully, if I'm trying to go to bed and I keep thinking about a situation that happened with us or you as an individual, like when in my quiet moments, we have a soul tie. Positive or negative, I need to find that out. Only way I can do that is like, okay, so where is it pulling me to? And how beneficial is it to what God has for my life? Because again, remember, like I mentioned, the soul ties that I had between my grandfather and my dad, I originally thought because, my grandfather and my dad love me. They want the best for me. So immediately wherever they're pulling me to is going to be the correct thing for me. But then God's like, no, I don't need you to be on a pulpit. I don't need you to be one of these kinds of pastors. I need you to move forward in digital media because I got bigger, different things for you.
God's like, open your mind.
Open your mind. Was it open your mind? Yeah, basically.
Yo, why your hands wet, man?
Because he's in another dude. That's why his hands are wet, blood.
Why are you wet and dripping, bro?
Because he's in another dude, fool. Anyway.
Is that a soul tie right there?
Yeah, no, that's an actual
two
physical
dudes
tie.
in one.
That's a gay relationship, sir?
Is it? I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, you need to recognize the tie and recognize its impact in your life. Once you figure out those things, you can figure out where it's pulling you towards. Once you identify these connections, if you need to break them, we just pray about it. Prayer and fast. Praying and fasting. Truly.
Definitely what it is.
We need to talk about that for sure in a future episode.
Yeah.
The next part about that is once you get that discernment, then you need to set boundaries.
Yeah, you need to get out of the situation.
You need to get out of it and then set boundaries. I'm just like, hey man, situation. I no longer accept you in my life as X and X leader, X and X thing.
Yeah.
This is what it is. This is what it ain't. Set those boundaries. The thing I try to have a question for everybody to reflect on, at least the one that I would reflect on a lot.
I dig it.
Is what's one soul tie you think might be holding you back, or what would it look like if you released it? What would it look like if you released it? Like, what is one soul tie, or at least that you can think of now, or at least because I find myself like when I ponder about soul ties, I'm like, what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
And what is a soul tie? Like, what does pull me back? Like, in the wildest, if I didn't have to commit to this one person, do this one thing, what would it look like on the other side of that? and then that's where you can kind of figure out, oh, it's good for me, or this is bad for me.
Yeah.
I always like to tie.
That's a good question, man.
I always like to.
No, you got me thinking.
Yeah, like, you know, seriously, like, what's a soul tie that you think might be holding you back? I read that incorrectly. That might be holding you back, and then you just figure out, so like, what would it look like if you released it, and if it ends up in a positive direction, you're like, oh, okay, so this soul tie might be holding me back.
So like one of the things I was just thinking about is like knowing someone that passed away, and just still having that tie to them, and it's like, well, what if you release that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Whatever, if you have guilt about it or whatever, like,
and I think that's where the other side of this is soul ties and searching for that truth. I think will inherently come with seeking therapy. I'm a big believer in therapy.
Yeah.
Bro, therapy helps. Therapy helps. But then
you
get
much. Into that because you can get into a bad soul tie to where you are so attached to this person that passed on that you're trying to talk to Ouija boards and whatnot, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
for real.
Like it's
it's wild, man.
Yeah, man,
it's wild. It can get deep.
It can get deep, and then it can make sense to you at that time because the soul ties are so strong that you're just like, man, I got to do.
You're like, I need to know. I need to know.
Yeah. And again, to tie it biblically, I think about James, and in James was it 5:16, 5 and 16. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. And that's that whole thing of just like figure out like whatever you're holding on to that you might be embarrassed. Now I'm not saying go and air out your business to just everybody. Yeah. But people that you trust, people that you know have your back, and people that are really geared to yours betterment.
Yeah, don't go on Facebook and just be like, yo, this dude is being crazy. You're like, all right, we already know who you're talking about. We know who you're talking about. We get it.
Don't do
we
that.
Get it.
But it's that
she
thing.
Over here tripping. Like,
she over here tripping, cut.
Like, all right, is she? Anyway.
And the reason why I say that is once you get rid of these soul ties and you set these boundaries, you have to heal.
Yep.
And think of, I know I have people in my life who I know have healed from stuff that I'm dealing with or have the strategies to further heal from that. And that's where therapy comes in, and that's where, breaking soul ties and stuff. Because the whole thing is you don't want to take a hook out just to sink another hook in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like you got to heal from that so you can move forward. And then that's where that's where kind of like, and that's where I wanted to go after that, because I was thinking of like, how do you break that soul tie and how do you move on from that? And what would it look like after you released it?
Yeah.
In that you have to go through some healing, and you have to go through some clarity, and then you have to go through some positive reinforcement, and then just talk to somebody that you trust and then know that has your back.
Yeah.
And you should be like, hey man, I'm dealing with this. Oh, you should get rid of it. I don't think it's good. That's good for you. Okay, I'll take your advice and see if that's really what it is and what it isn't for my life.
So I think when I went through that, and I did the prayer and fasting and everything and cut these soul ties. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, God just literally was just like, all right, we just wiped them completely out of you. Like,
don't go picking back up.
Yeah, there's no feelings here. There's no nothing. Like, now granted, like, you still care for that person. Like, right. Oh, you don't want them to like die or anything like that. So you're just like, oh, okay. But like, once you do that, that cuts everything off completely, and you just have like, they're almost like a stranger to a degree. It's just a person that you used to know. I hate that song, but anyway. Used to know. Yeah, I hate that song.
Somebody.
But, yeah. But it's literally, that's what it is. And so it's easier to move on.
Yeah.
Per se. But then, strongholds and stuff like that will pull you back in or something like that.
Because there's another side to it that kind of goes with soul ties, and that's really I'm blanking on the agreements, the courts of heaven.
Okay. Yeah.
The courts of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to do that and go and figure that out, because there's agreements that are made, so it may not be a soul tie.
Yeah,
maybe an
yeah,
agreement,
yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
a legal agreement.
Yeah.
And you got to get that taken care of too. And
True.
that's part of soul ties is that's why it goes a little bit deeper because you got to figure out what's going on and what you got to do and what you got to get done.
Yeah. I can't wait till we talk about that.
Oh, dude, that's gonna be a good one. So
fun.
I kind of want to close out and talk about just pretty straightforward. I kind of like I ended the first episode, just kind of like I don't want to even call it a challenge. Like here's I guess a challenge.
Well, you already said the question.
Oh well, yeah, but there's another thing like
You got something else?
yeah, because it's like that'll help. Because like, what do you think? That's something to reflect on, but something to kind of do would be kind of in conjunction with that question of like, what's a soul tie that might be holding you back? What would it look like if you released it? I kind of want to, like, the thing that I've been reflecting on, even when it comes to soul ties, is like, when I'm thinking of that, just to kind of further that, like, which ones are holding me down and which ones are lifting me up. So, like, try to kind of go further into that, which ones are positive, which ones are negative. And then just, if you don't know, start asking for clarity.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you pray for clarity.
Yeah.
Kind of want to close this out. If this episode resonated with you,
Oh, yeah.
please share your story with us. Tell us which parts resonated with you and tell us which ones you'd want to talk about, or tell us your story. Hit us up in the comments, DM us, inboxes, do all the things. If this also resonated with you, send it to somebody that you might think will resonate with. That it'll resonate with. But we definitely want to hear from you. We definitely
resonate.
we definitely want to hear from you. We definitely want to continue the conversation. So hit us up, share it with somebody, like, comment, subscribe, because we're going to be doing more of these. And then just last thing, I want to end it off with understanding that soul ties do not define your future. God is literally all about freedom. And he's got the power to take those hooks out of you, to break those chains. You know what I'm saying? Like, take it back to old school. Take it. Was it Tasha Cobbs? Is it Tasha Cobbs? Anyway, break every chain. Yeah, Tasha Cobbs. Let God take those hooks out. Let God break those chains. And let's figure this out together.
Let's go.
Cool. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.